June the 2nd, halfway through the investigation, the two lawyers handed the letter to the Chinese embassy, asking for the conditions to conduct independent investigations in China. In the letter, the request stated that meeting with the Chinese ambassador or his representative, and hope to learn under what condition they could enter China and conduct a substantial investigation.
Once we're there, we would identify to investigate and not just present with evidence. The government of China has itself.
On June the 19th, they received a response from the Chinese embassy in Ottawa requesting a meeting at 2 p.m. on the 23rd. At 11 a.m. the same day, reporter phoned the embassy asking for the key points for the meeting. The embassy media relations officer responded.
天刚回来，我还不太了解，我了解一下，我给你打电话好吗？啊，你给我留个电话吧。
The reporter has yet to receive that reply from the embassy. At 2:30 p.m. David Kilgour came back from a brief meeting with the senior political counsel of the Chinese embassy, Mr. Sun, in the restaurant.
I think the first thing I asked him was, well, will you issue us visas? And his answer was, well, I don't deal with visas. So you're going to have to talk to the visa department. You're going to have to go over and apply for a visa. And I said to him, well, I certainly thought why are we having this conversation? This meeting was to be about whether or not we get a visa. And he's telling me he has nothing to do with visas. Which I didn't believe, but I mean, it was pretty much a waste of both of our times. I think, in fact, I think I told him that.
The Chinese embassy and denied media's visa application successfully in the US, Germany, and Australia. The response in Canada today should be predictable. Then what influence will it have on the report? That is to say, how important it is to interpret China.
Even if we do get to China, we cannot assume that we would have a free reign to go where we want when we want unannounced. The UN Special Rapporteur for China has had a number of visits there, and in his recent report, which just came out in March, detailed all the restrictions and problems and and if that's a UN official, not the problems he has. I can't imagine we're going to be problem free, even if we allowed to go, so that simply going to China is not the answer, although I think it's part of the answer, and if they allow us in, we'd be happy to accept. And in some ways, witnesses that are North America are going to be more free to give us information than witnesses who are in China, because they're not subject to the intimidation of the government of China the way they would be if they were in China. And so I wouldn't dismiss the weight of the witnesses who are here in North America.
I don't think it's terribly significant. Because, as you know, in the case of Mr. Novak, and the Vice President of the European Parliament, both, and then I gather that their movements have been quite restricted, and in the case of Mr. Novak from the UN, one of the people he spoke to was Falun Gong practitioner has disappeared. So I don't want to create a risk, further risk for people of great courage. So I think we've got plenty already. We've talked to many people. We've looked at evidence. We've read lots of things. We've, I think, we've got more than enough evidence to file a useful report.
The communist regime's reaction to this application makes people draw other conclusions. This perhaps is something they may not want to see.
If the Chinese government wants to really, if they were really concerned about this sort of allegation and wanted to show that this is outrageous. This is incredible that someone would spread such untruths. Allow people into investigate. If you truly want to show that this is false propaganda being spread about them, allow investigators in. Show them. Give them full access. Open everything up. Let them see. And if you don't, what does that indicate?
On July the 6th, 2006, the press conference on the investigation report will be held at 11 a.m. A few days before the report was released, Canadian media had already interviewed Mr. Kilgour and Mr. Matas. They disclosed that the result shows that the allegation of the communist regime harvesting Falun Gong practitioners' organs live is true. What the public hoped to learn from this report is whether this crime is a original case or systematic government action. The scope of the crime, how many people are involved, and what recommendations the two investigators have for the Canadian government and for the international communities.
Our bottom line conclusion after considering everything as best we could was that the allegation